All right, guys, we are back. Welcome to episode 2 of the Be Better podcast with my personal friend, personal mentor, someone I've looked up to like a father with such great life lessons, the visionary of human potential himself, Dr. Charlie Cartwright. Thank you so much for coming on, brother.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, buddy.
That's awesome, man. So, to give a little bit of context of how Dr. Charlie and I met years ago, I just thought I'd share this funny story and then we can kind of roll it off from here. So, um, most people that know me, I'm a big gamer, like to game in my free time. Dr. Charlie, although I would never suspect looking at this guy, that he's a huge gamer as well, and he's pretty damn good at what he does. We played a game, can't name names, but just I don't want to get in trouble by Microsoft. But played a game. What would you say, man? Probably 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago for sure.
Yeah.
And I thought I was a G at the game, right? I thought I was top G. I was kicking ass, taking names, whatever. I get matched up with Dr. Charlie here and a buddy of his, and it wasn't even a contest. I mean, they mopped the floor with us. I mean, you know that. You're smiling because he's humble, but he knows it's true. He mopped the floor with us, man. And I tell this story often because it was so damn funny. And when somebody, especially in Xbox or, video games, whatever you play, when somebody kicks your ass, you're normally sending them every bad word under the book. Their mom's this and that, the whole gambit, right? Well, something in my gut told me not to do that to this guy this time, right? So I was like, listen, like he's figured something out. Right, it's like he's not just good. He's not cheating. It's not. He's something has happened here where this guy has cracked the code. So instead of me going through and cussing at him and yelling at him, I just messaged him and said, "Hey man, can you please teach me how you did that?" And typically I would say 99% of people, man, probably wouldn't even respond. Probably just blow it off, whatever. So, screw this guy. Just kicked his ass. Dr. Charlie, enough being the great guy that he is, invited me to the party, and we had a couple-hour conversation, and he actually got in the game with me and showed me step by step what he does to be successful. I mean, and he blossomed that in me, and now, man, whenever we play together, we're nasty out there, man. We're dominant. We are nasty. It's a bad day when you match up with us, man. It is a bad day, So that's a little bit of context. I hope that kind of shows a little bit of light of like what the character that Dr. Charlie is and how his soul works, man. And I'm just going to say one more time, I'm so thankful for the opportunity to connect with you. So thankful for the friendship and relationship that we've blossomed so far through this 6-7 years. And lastly, man, I'm thanking you so much for teaching me how to kick the can with all these people on that game. So
Absolutely.
so awesome, man. Oh, that's great. Well, yeah, so a little bit of background, man. I know you obviously very well, but I know our viewers don't. So if you could just give me a little bit of background, kind of go through, where'd you start, where you're at, and, kind of where you're going.
Yeah. So, grew up small town, Olathe, Kansas. And I, kind of had a tough childhood. I had a dad that had a lot of challenges and issues. And so ended up spending a lot of time with my grandparents once I got into the teen years. I learned a lot from them. My grandmother, she didn't drive, but she cleaned homes for wealthy people. And then she also had some commercial buildings that she cleaned. And so when I got to be a teenager, she said, "Hey, if you come and help me, you can make some money." So I started helping her doing that. And, little did I know that, she's like Mr. Miyagi and the Karate Kid, that I was learning all these life lessons and lessons that helped me in business without really knowing it, right? With the work ethic and getting along with people and communicating with people. And, and then she was just quietly successful, right? So I didn't realize at the time she was an entrepreneur. So that kind of got me in the bug of, hey, here's what you do. Here's how you can make money. Here's how you can have some money in your pocket, which is always helpful. I was a pretty good athlete back in the day. So I did get a D1 scholarship and played for a few years. But in that time, I think I played for 3 years. But in that time, it manifested when I got to college, but I didn't know I had this social anxiety issue, which back then they didn't. This was in the 80s, of course, early 80s. They didn't have a name for that, and I had problems going to class with like 110 strangers. If my teammates were in a class, I could do it. So first year, they always put you in classes where your teammates are in there. I had no problem, but in the high school, I went to school with all those kids for over a decade, so it never showed up till I got to college. But I was very naturally, shy. And so I had trouble with that. And so it ended up costing me because over time, I wouldn't go to the class and drop the class, try to take it in the summer, the summer class was much smaller. And so anyhow, that was a early failure. But then at the same time, there's so many lessons in that failure that fueled my career. And so worked in transportation for like 20 years, and from loading trucks to driving trucks to leading teams, and throughout my leadership career, I kind of would take the best of what I found leaders do and try to leave the rest. And then as I matured in my career, I was successful wherever I went. And the last company I worked for before I went out on my own, I was challenged about my results. And my results were great with the client. I was in charge of helping clients reduce workers' compensation, post-injury management costs. People maybe spending $30 million a year in work comp, and to get that number reduced. And so I was able to help a handful of clients reduce that number by 7 figures, right? Which is significant. So then instead of celebrating that, my employer challenged that, well, where's the data to support your methodology? I was like, well, why don't you call the clients and ask them? They're saving, millions of dollars. Well, there's no data to support that your method's duplicatable, sustainable. It was a strange deal. So then that launched me on a mission to find out all my principles, to research, to find out, am I just getting lucky here, which has been alluded to, or does science support my approach? And so I didn't care what the truth was. I just wanted the truth. And if there's something that I should be doing that I'm not doing, I want to start. And if there are things that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing, I want to stop. And if there's things that are working that I should continue, then I want to continue. So that's what I did. And then that resulted in the success, the one-on-one success formula that I have, 10 principles. And that drives everything I do personally and professionally. And it's rooted in science. And so I'm a research nerd, and I'm just happy to be here. So that's kind of a synopsis real quick of my background.
Yeah, and I remember years ago when you first told me about the formula, and you sent me a picture of it, and it looks like something Einstein would draw on a chalkboard, brother. It's so complex, but when you break it down as perfectly as you do, I mean, it makes more sense than anything I've ever seen. I mean, it just really makes sense. Do you have it written out behind you somewhere we can see?
Let me think if I have a document. I have a document. I do.
I just never forget when you sent me that picture of that, and I was like, "What the hell did he just send me?" So there it is, guys. That's the blueprint to success, if you will. That's the formula.
Yeah, and these principles are all rooted in science. And I'll just give you one of the foundational principles. It's love, right? You think about love, you hear it on Valentine's Day. It's a fluffy word. They say on Sundays, right? And all this stuff. But is there real science behind it? And there is. And University of North Carolina conducted a 15-year-long research study on love and its impact on human beings. At the end of that 15 years, they found that it only impacts 4 things, right? What are the 4 things that love impacts? And I'm talking about, and define love as the unselfish care and concern for the well-being of another human being. So what are those 4? Love impacts everything people think, feel, do, and become. It's kind of a big 4. So if I'm working with a leader, hey, how would you like to impact everything your people think, feel, do, and become? Oh, yeah, doctor, how do you do it? Gotta love them. Right? Have a heart attack. You're raising children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews. You want to impact everything they think, feel, do, and become. You gotta love them. A lot of companies, Nate, I'm convinced of this, put people on a performance improvement plan, right? They're not making it. They're not doing the deal. So we're going to discipline them. And we're treating problems with discipline when the solution is love. We love them enough and love them the right way, discipline won't be necessary. And here's the reality of it. There's not enough love in the world, number one, and you can't assume that the people in your life, person, profession, are getting it anywhere else. Most likely they're not. And so that manifests in behavior that's unproductive or combative, or it manifests so many ways. And the root of it is this person feels disconnected, lonely, right? Mother Teresa said that the most terrible poverty is not financial. She said it's the feeling of loneliness and being unloved. And in this country, there are millions right now. They might be living in a big house, or they might be living in their car, or middle class, but they go to work every day feeling lonely and unloved. And when you remedy that, then you see the best that they have to offer. So,
I want people that are going to be listening to this whenever, because I just want people to really understand, excuse me, the magnitude of what you just said, because you're not taught that, right? You're not taught that in school. You're not taught that anywhere, and you're so right. So I'll tell you, in relation to me, I read a quote years ago, and I've tried to implement it into my life as best I can. But you attract more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. You've heard that how many times, right? 1,000 times. Right? I think it's a Italian grandma parable from back in the day, right? Mm-hmm. But the whole premise of that, man, is what you just said, right? Like I've been a manager in multiple roles. I've been an executive in multiple roles where there's teams underneath me. And, at first you want to come through as this dictator, right? As this authoritarian or some guy that runs the plays and calls the shots, right? And people are supposed to respect you. Your ego is getting fed that. But the team, it's undermining the team and it's hating you, man. But I've learned, that was my first management role. I ran like that. Dude, our results were great. We were kicking ass. But was people happy? Definitely not. Like they weren't happy. So the second time around, when I was able to get in that position and have team and people underneath me, I fostered that with love and trust and guidance. And, where, hey, Nate's the boss of this team. But I know for a fact if I call Nate at 3 a.m. with an issue, he's going to help me solve it. There's that trust there, that bond there, that love was there, that support was there. And I think in this world, man, like a lot of that love is missing in those elements. And another example about me, man, is like, I don't really have a father figure. I mean, I have some people in my life like you and my grandfather, a couple others that I've learned from that have been great, figureheads for me. But my little brother too, he's got a couple of those people, but we both don't have parents really, right? And I spent a lot of time with my brother during the summer. So, summer, he just started freshman year in high school. So, we spent quite a bit of time together. And I've always thought, hey, I got to beat this kid, not physically, but mentally. I got to beat this kid up mentally to make him tough. So whenever he goes into the real world, he's ready. He's hard as nails, right? And so I'd be really tough on him. He'd make a mistake. I'd grill him. I might, verbally discipline him, make him feel stupid, and just these things hindsight 2020 I feel bad about. And I've started incorporating that, hey, instead of me, throwing him through the mud when he makes a mistake, fostering that lesson learning opportunity with love and compassion and understanding, right? And when I've started making these pulls, not only have I noticed his receptiveness to that is greater, but his response to it on just talking about it is greater, right? Where if you yell at him and you make him feel dumb, he's quiet. He's like, yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. Whatever. But whenever we talk about it and it's that positive love aspect added to it, now it's a conversation, right? Now I get to learn what made him do what he did. Why did he act this way? Why did he say this? Why did he drop this? Whatever the situation was. So I completely agree with you. I just wish that there was a way we can indoctrinate the whole love aspect into society, into our education, into our world, man, because there's so much things out there, other emotions. There's greed, there's lust, there's hate, there's envy. There's all these other emotions out there. And love is one that's probably the most important, but probably the less utilized and the less shed. We had a call this morning, for Give People Reference. Every Sunday, Dr. Charlie invited me to this mastermind call, and we just talk about some great ideas. And, really it's just about wisdom and knowledge. And I'm so thankful to be a part of it. But the whole topic of the conversation this morning really was about abundance. And, we talked about this morning, abundance of money, abundance of resources, all this stuff. There's an abundance of love out there too. People just have to show it, have to give it, have to feel it, have to take it in. So, yeah, do you have any ideas of how, on a foundational level, sorry to be long-winded there, but I think you really struck a nerve with me there because it's so true. Do you have any ideas on a foundational level how people might be able to incorporate that love aspect into their life a little more so? If you were the president of a school board, what is an idea that you might have that we could get that in the school systems as well?
I'll start with school systems because I think that's really important. I would make Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl required reading. Before you get into middle school, you'll have read that book and discussed it and been tested on the principles. That if everyone every person on this planet had to read that book, it would change our world to the point where it wouldn't be unrecognizable in a good way. And that's a hard book to read. I can only read like a page or two at a time. I had to put it down. So it took several weeks to get through that book, because it's talking about he was a clinical psychologist. He gets captured by the Nazis, him and his wife, and he gets sent to Auschwitz. And he survived, but he wrote about his experiences from the viewpoint of a clinical psychologist and what he saw and why some people made it and why they didn't. And, the people, he said, now there were people that had meaning in their life and still didn't make it. But he said, if you didn't have meaning in your life, things you loved that you wanted to get back to, you had no chance to survive. And so so that would be the first thing I would do with the schools. And then through that, everything else would blossom as a result of it. So as far as us as human beings, because, you look at it and there's all these issues in the world, all these challenges. One person, what can I do? So a lot of times people say, well, I'm just one person. What can I do? So then they don't do anything, right? And so the key is to do something, right? And whatever that is, whatever you feel comfortable doing. I think it was John F. Kennedy that said, anyone can make a difference and everyone should try, right? And I've quoted that for years, Nate, years. But this year, I looked at it differently and I said, you know what? He said, anyone can make a difference. Everyone should try. I'm like, no, I want to be the difference. I'm not going to try to make a difference. I'm going to be the difference. Be the difference for that kid. Be that difference for a neighbor. Be the difference for someone in the grocery store. Be the difference for someone walking on a trail. Be the difference for someone broken down on the side of the road. Just be the difference. And we do that so many ways. So I got this like Facebook Marketplace thing. It's like I get a little free time. I'll look around, see if there's anything that, because I like to collect little knickknacks. It's just something I do. Nothing too crazy expensive, but I saw this. They had an old slot machine for sale, this guy. And it's a Speed Racer slot machine. Now, I grew up with Speed Racer. When I was a little kid, I would run home from school so I could watch Speed Racer and see the whole 30-minute episode, right? I have on DVD, I have every episode of Speed Racer, okay? So I saw the Speed Racer slot machine. I love Speed Racer. I had to get it, So, I'm negotiating back and forth with the guy. And, and so we negotiate down. So the original price is $300. And we negotiate down to $250. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So anyway, when I said, hey, here's my vehicle, meeting place, and make and model and all that, color, he's like, well, I'll be driving a white pickup truck, with a rack on top. And then the windows will be down because that's why I'm selling this machine is I got to get my air conditioner fixed, right? So when I get there, I'm like, hey, man, look at the machine, put it in the car. I said, I appreciate it, and I read your message, so I'm just going to go with the whole 300 because the man's got to have his, air conditioner fixed. And so little things like that is $50. But to that guy, it's just like, oh, you know what I mean? He sold it for $250 and then he gets the 300 he originally wanted. And his wife wanted it out of there. So she's happy both ways, right? Get that machine out. You know what I mean? So, but just little things we can do. It's amazing. So my next door neighbor, super nice family, probably one of the nicest families I've ever met. I can't think of a nicer family. They have 2 little girls, right? And so something I do around Halloween is I make like little for the neighbor kids. I get these little cans and I fill them up with candy and I take them over there before Halloween. So that way, if I'm not home that day or whatever, they got their candy ahead of time. And so the first time I brought them over, and I think their daughters are 9 and 6. And the oldest was like, do you want to come inside? Why don't you come in? Just come in. And so I'm like, no, you guys are your family. And the parents are standing there and they're like, well, she's our social butterfly. She tells me, well, anytime, you're welcome anytime. Just come in. So I'm like, okay. So yesterday I was coming back from the grocery store and they're out standing on the driveway. Oh, hi, Charlie. We're waiting on our friend to come over. I said, oh, you guys are going to play? Yeah, well, that'll be fun. So then the 6-year-old, so I'm walking to the house, the 6-year-old, Charlie, can I have a hug? Six years old. Making a difference, dude. Who's asked me to hug them in the last week? Nobody. 6-year-old girl, man. 6 years old. She comes over and hugs me. But she wanted a hug, but dude, it helped me. And again, I'm good. I'm fine. But when someone gives you something that you're missing, you realize you're missing it. My kids are grown. You know what I mean? Like, they're grown up, and they hug me, but it's not like when they were little. And so, there's just little ways we can make a difference. So
I think you're right. There's a couple points I want to touch on here. I love you pulling up the JFK quote, one of my favorite presidents. But somebody that's probably a little more known than JFK, believe it or not, is probably Yoda. And what did Yoda say? Do or do not, there is no try.
Right.
Yoda said that in the 80s. In 83, I think, is when Return of the Jedi came out, right? So he said that, right? And, that's just one little funny thing I wanted to say. But, talking about children, man, Celeste and I, we're getting married, God bless, in 48 days. And, you're actually speaking at our wedding, so can't thank you enough for, doing that. But, we're going to have kids after that. And Celeste and I come from such different backgrounds where her family is all about love and nurturing and caring and understanding. And my family was very combative. There's not a lot of love shown in my family's household. They're good people. My family, I love them to death. I wouldn't trade them for the world, but that's just not how we operate. We are not a hug and kiss our kid family. We are a more, I don't want to say like logical, strict, but it's just more of we're not a very emotional family. We keep ourselves very in tune. We're very refined. We use logic to go through any system, right? But Celeste's family, God bless, when I met them, they're like, my family is materialistic in gifts as well. And that's not a bad thing, not bash people that are, because I am myself, but when I, when I went to my family's Christmas, everybody has expensive gifts that they give each other and we have a great time and it works for our dynamic. I go to Celeste's family and the love is, oh, hey, Celeste is very crafty, as you know. And, she'll spend 2 weeks making this awesome gift by hand for her mom, and that means the world to her mom or to her brother or to anything, right? That just means it doesn't. She could have pulled up and said, hey, Mom, here's a brand new Lamborghini outside. And it wouldn't have held enough value as the gift that Celeste made by hand because of the love that they fostered. So with me saying that, I think different dynamics in households are different in the way they show love. And I think some show more love than others. But, it's like that quote, too, that it's actually a meme, I think, more of a quote. But, when a 3-year-old girl hands you a fake cell phone, you answer it. You take it and you're like, hello. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, when a little girl or a little boy, when a little child like that asks for a hug, I would say the statistic of who's hugging that kid is probably almost 100%, right? Because you're not going to. So let me ask you this. The reason why I'm asking that and bringing that up is like, do you think that from a young age, naturally, children are just so innocent and pure that love is able to come out so much more naturally? And then because of society or because of, their environment or their home life, that love is kind of shunned away and it kind of is kind of swept under the rug. Do you think that's a factor? Where do you think that love goes?
I do believe that, Nate. And it's interesting because I'll talk about this with leaders at times, right? Where, they're a kid and as soon as they start talking and walking and interacting, then they start being told what not to do. Don't say that. Don't speak up. Sit down over there, right? Don't do that. You're going to get hurt. Don't, right? So, well, you can't hug everybody and you can't do this and you can't, don't tell people that's a stranger and blah, blah, blah. And so then they become adults. Well, they struggle, right? Because guess what you have to do in order to be successful as an entrepreneur? You need to talk to strangers, right? You need to be friendly, right? You need to ask people questions. You need to speak up. All these things that got trained out of them, right? And so, but it tells me those two girls and their personalities are a little different. The oldest is the really huggy one, but it was amazing that the youngest one asked for the hug, so she's adopting those things, but that's being nurtured behind closed doors in that house. And so these are loving kids, right? And so even in this world, that's possible, right? That can be nurtured. And those folks are, I've never seen them with a frown on their face. This family, I mean, I know they're not perfect people. They can't be, but they're making the effort to do the right thing and nurturing that and encouraging that. They didn't, because when that girl invited me in the house, she didn't say, "Oh no, he can't do." They didn't discourage her. Then I said, your parents probably going to have their evening, but thank you for the invitation. And so, but they just, well, that was nice of you to invite him, and that was, so they encouraged. And what I know is this: I was, you and I have taught, Nate. I mean, my circumstances I grew up with, that made me very angry. I was an angry kid and angry teenager, and that's why football resonated, right? Because I'd get in fights and kept getting kicked out of school, right? And then when I played football, I knocked somebody down. The coach said, "Good job." Then I connected the dots. Oh, I just gotta wait till football practice. Some kid say something to me I didn't like. I'm like, oh, no problem. And then they didn't know they had a bullseye on them. I knocked the kid's socks off as soon as I could. And then the coach said, that's the way to hit people. Didn't know. I was just being angry. And so that got encouraged. And so and that drove me, because there's a lot of energy in anger. There's a lot of power in anger. And so that really drove a lot of the things I accomplished. And so when I went away from that model, I lost all my juice. I lost all that horsepower. That jet fuel was gone. I had nothing. And then when I started replacing it with love, I go to, and I do, I'm a professional speaker. So I say I have an audience of 250, and this happened recently. Someone talked to me afterward, and he said that, "Hey, I heard your speech." And he said, "I'm divorced and estranged from my 2 adult daughters. And this is the first time I know why," right? In your speech, because I grew up that way and angry and tough love. And what do I do? And so we had a great talk about it. He was in tears. We had a great talk about it. But one of my points to him was, if I delivered an angry message, there's 250 men in that room, and I delivered an angry message, how many of them would be like, "Yeah, that's right"? 5, 10, right? Yeah. But I delivered a message of love. How many people in that room do I have right now? All of them. Love is so much more powerful. There's no question, right? But it takes more skill, more patience, to work it, and courage, right? Because if someone doesn't accept you when you're angry, well, you're going to fire back, right? But if you come from a place of love, then you come back with understanding, or you walk away, and don't give them your 2 cents, right? Don't give them a piece of your mind, instead you give people a piece of your heart. And every time you give someone a piece of your heart, Nate, you know what happens? It grows back. It grows back bigger and stronger. So, but that's not, to your point, that's not being taught in society at all. But the people who figure it out dominate, and they put their names on buildings, libraries, right? People talk about them centuries after their death because they truly were the difference.
Yeah, I know me and you were both big on books, and we're constantly, I feel like, finishing one, starting another one, and I've read a lot and listened to a lot, and heard a lot, seen a lot about Andrew Carnegie, right? And he's one of the original fathers of industries, right? You got him, Vanderbilt, J.P. Morgan, and Rockefeller. And out of all of them, arguably, I think, in my opinion, I think most people would agree if you've done a little research and know your history, Andrew Carnegie was the most generous. He was the one that was, in the Depression and, in the times when life was hard. He was the one like, "Hey, listen, I won't take a paycheck this week. Give it to my guys so they can eat," right? Whereas, Rockefeller and the other guys were like, "Oh, they're starving. Well, tough shit, right? Like, I'm gonna get mine, right?" And like when I think about like just people like that, like there's more buildings named after Andrew Carnegie than I think any other of those guys. There's more foundations, there's more colleges, there's more funds, there's more scholarships, there's more everything you can think of, right? Because he was that love first mentality. And I think the guy in modern day money, if I'm not mistaken, was worth like 430 billion or something crazy, right? Like he could stack his money from the earth to the moon like 4 times or something if he had $1 bills in it, right? So But just that whole concept of love even on a large scale like that, right? It doesn't matter, like you said, where your neighbors, they're fostering that healthy love mentality and that foundation in their home, or on a grander scale where somebody has 10,000 employees, but he loves them and the love reciprocates. And I wasn't there. I don't think I had any family members that worked in any of his steel mills, but I can promise you, I'm sure the conditions were probably mirrored all the way down, from the head of the snake all the way to the tail. I'm sure that love was such a factor there and such a culture there that, people were comfortable, going to work and feeling that way. So I mean, not to go on a tangent there, but I just really think, and necessarily, I don't think me and you have ever had this conversation in depth about love. I don't think we have. We've talked about anything from finances to vacations to goals to wants to wishes to hopes and aspirations, but I just never think that we've broken it down this way. And man, I'm so thankful that you have this insight, because I wish I could stream this podcast on the moon so everybody could see it at the same time, because I think what you're saying here is so true and so relevant, where people just so often overlook the love side of it. They just overlook the love. And you just said a quote that I'm going to remember forever, is that when you give a piece of your heart, what happens? It grows back bigger and stronger. And I think you're right. And, I'm not trying to talk about myself here, but yesterday I have an example of that, where I was in the grocery store, Walmart. We had a barbecue, had some friends over and everything. I like to cook. I like to be a host. You know me. And there's this older gentleman in front of me, and he had, to give perspective, right? I had $200 worth of meat and the spices and all this, expensive stuff, whatever the hell. I look at his, on the grocery little cart, not cart, but the trolley thing, you know what I mean, that pulls the grocery up so they can scan it, whatever the hell that's called. He had 2 cans of Vienna sausages, some fruit, pork rind, just like very inexpensive items, right? And he's an older man. You could tell he's probably not the most wealthiest guy, but I'm sitting there and I'm looking at what's on my side of the little divider and what's on his side of the divider. And I'm like, this isn't right. I was like, something's not right here. I'm like, somewhere along the way, even though financially we're talking different, I'm like, he figured it out and I don't have it figured out. He's living on these basic necessities, and I'm over here buying, $20 bratwurst for what? They taste the same as a $2 hot dog. You know what I mean? But it's just the mentality of it. So I said, hey, sir, take your bags and go ahead. I have you. I got you covered. And I paid for his groceries, and, he said, thank you. And then the lady at the register looked at me crazy, right? Like she's never seen that before. And I was blown away, because I've done that before, and I've been very blessed. People have done that for me. People have paid it forward and bought my meal at Jimmy John's or Chick-fil-A or something, right? People do that. I thought it was a pretty common thing, and the lady at the Walmart looks at me and she goes, why the hell would you do that? And I said, I just felt like it was the right thing to do. That's what my gut instinct said that. My heart said that. And I don't know the man's situation, but hopefully somewhere down the line, he's able to do something like that to someone else. But her response is what kind of bothered me. She was so concerned almost. Like, it's not like he put a gun in my back and said, hey, buy me these groceries. It was just, she was so concerned about, and that's just going back to your point, man. There's just such a commonality of lack of love. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's a stranger. I hope I never see him again. I hope he does great things. I hope he hits the lottery tomorrow, whatever the hell it is, right? But I also hope that cashier who has that negative outlook of being angry or has hatred or whatever it is in her heart, I hope that she also hits the lottery when it comes to love and sees that positive influence coming back, where hopefully that sparks something in her where, she's like, hey, I saw something full of love happen today. Maybe I should try, or not try, excuse me. We're not going to use that word anymore, right? I need to do this to incorporate love into my life as well.
Yeah, man, this is a powerful story. And, I was thinking about something we talked about this morning, and just this pie, we've been, conditioned in this country, your piece of the pie, right? And then people want a bigger slice, and then someone else will say, well, we grow the pie, then everybody's slice is different. So we use an example of an apple pie, right? Take an apple pie, for instance, and we have that's a scarcity. There's one pie, and we're all trying to get a sliver of that or a slice of it, or then someone's innovative. Oh, let's make the pie bigger. Hey, but as we spoke about today, if we have an apple tree, how many pies will that tree spawn? Right. And then when we get multiple apple trees, before long, we have an orchard. And I'm telling you, we take the time and effort to nurture one apple tree that we do to bake one pie, put those hours and put it into just nurturing that seed, we'll have more pie than we can ever eat in our lifetime. And that's what we need to do with love.
It really is the same principle, and I think you're right. And I think a lot of people skip those steps, right? Yep. They're more focused on the pie and the instant gratification of whatever that is, right? And I talked about instant gratification last week with my other guest, and I think it's a culture problem that we have, right? I think the instant gratification is what people seek so instantly because it's that quick dopamine release. But in tune, they're really shooting themselves in their own foot. Whereas, like you said, man, if you focused on, stop worrying about having half of the pie at Thanksgiving, right? Worry about being able to bring 100 pies to the next Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
You plant that seed. I know trees take forever to grow, but for example, in anything in life, let's say you plant that seed, like you said, in a couple of years, now you have an orchard, right? Now you have thousands of apples to chew from. Now you're not fighting your nephew or your brother, your sister, your uncle, your father, whoever. You're not fighting them over the bigger slice. Everybody now has 6 pies if they wanted to eat them all they could, and there's still more left over. So it's all that abundance. And just to keep the trend rolling, because it's funny, please share your gamer tag on what it is on Xbox, talking about abundance.
The abundant one.
The abundant one. It's just, and I don't know if that's just the universe somewhere sequenced down the line years ago that's relevant to this conversation, but that's huge. I want to switch gears just a little bit here. I want to go through a little bit more of the formula, but you said something earlier that I want to touch on before I forget, and you said social anxiety. I, believe it or not, a lot of people know me. They know I'm pretty type A personality. I like to talk. I like to be in front of people. I like to be I hate to say it, I like to be center of attention sometimes, it's shitty as that sounds, but it's true. But you said something earlier when it comes to social anxiety that made a lot of sense for me. So here in the last couple of years, I've been dealing with a lot of social anxiety. I don't believe in medication or anything like that. So I've always tried to find natural ways: exercise, better diet, cutting sugar out. I take, vitamins in the morning to kind of balance me out. Some magnesium to make sure I'm feeling good throughout the day, whatever. And God bless. I drink almost 3 liters of water a day with these body armors. But when you said earlier that you were in a school with people that you've known for a decade, you didn't care because you all knew them, right? And I felt the same way in high school and grade school, and even in college. I could take public speaking classes and dominate up there, man. I was known for public speaking. I was known for my confidence and my maybe a little bit of that's ego, but my confidence to get in front of people and just do well when it comes to speaking, right? But when I got into different settings where I didn't know the majority of people and they didn't know me, my self-consciousness rose. My nervousness rose. My everything rose, man. And I'm just wondering too, I wonder why there's such a large disconnect there with social anxiety where, if you're speaking in front of 100 students that you went to school for 10 years, you kill it. When you're in front of 100 people that are still the same people, right? Still humans, right? Still have the same genetic makeup, same DNA, same country. Why is there such a difficulty there? Are you think it's just people are just comfortable? Where's the disconnect there?
Yeah, there's a lack of understanding. And I think most struggles, right, if not all, comes down to a lack of understanding. Either we're not applying, we don't know the principles behind it, or we're not applying them properly. And a friend of mine said this, and so I'm going to give him credit. Kerry Phillips. And I said to someone there, someone else said that before he did. I Googled it and there's nothing. So which tells you something about this next quote, but it says that principles are too important to be new. Okay. So we don't invent principles, we discover them, right? Like electricity, gravity, magnetism, all these things. And so it's the same thing with human behavior and understanding human beings. And I don't know who said this. It might have been Marcus Aurelius, but it said, if you know thyself, and you will know man, God, and the universe, right? And that's a deep quote, but the reality is whatever you struggle with, other people struggle with. They're not separate from you, right? So, when Mike Tyson was in his height and prime and he was intimidating and he knew how to scare people. You know how he knew how to scare people? Because his trainer taught him this, because Mike was scared of it. And so he says, if I'm scared of it, then they're scared of it. So I'm going to use it to my advantage, right? And so, I remember when I went out to when I made the decision to go out on my own, right, in this business, and I was so fired up, tired of this corporate thing. I'm going to go out on my own. So I was fired up for about 60 seconds. And then I got overwhelmed with fear, like paralyzing. And I'm sitting on the couch, like I can't even get off this couch now. I'm going to run my own business. I'm scared to death because all these what ifs start piling in. And someone had told me this, and hey, there's a crew, I think it's ESPN, one of those 30 for 30s or something. It's on Brian Bosworth, Brian the Boz. And so I was in the same era with him football wise. And so I was on a defensive player too. But so when he was on defense and we played him, I got to stay on sideline and watch him play. And greatest college linebacker that ever lived. Now, people will say, yeah, but there's that video, Bo Jackson, ran over him in Seattle. They show the film, Bo Jackson. Well, here's what people need to know. Ray Lewis, Ray Nitschke, Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor, Dick Butkus, on that play, they're all getting run over. All right? You're not, Bo Jackson would have run. He's 240 pounds. He runs 4.1. You're getting run over. So stop it. Now, so anyway, this documentary kind of goes into his whole thing. And he's standing in the tunnel, right? And national televised game, they're going to play the Miami Hurricanes. And he's talking about how afraid he is standing in that tunnel. And I realized at that moment, if Brian Bosworth was afraid, everybody's afraid, right? And so the difference, and Mike Tyson's talked about it, Customato, the hero and the coward feel the same thing. But what makes the coward and the hero the hero? The hero is the hero because he does what the coward wouldn't do, right? And the coward's a coward because the coward wouldn't do what the hero would do. Same feeling, but what they do with it. And so, but we're not taught this, okay? We're not taught it. And once you figure it out, when I'm staying, I don't care if it's 5,000 people out in the audience. I know that there's 4,995 of them that are glad it's me up there and not them, because they're scared to death. I can never do that. And then if I'm any good at all, that was fantastic, right? You know what I mean? So once you understand that, it's huge, right? You don't want to talk to strangers? Nobody wants to talk to strangers. You're afraid to talk to strangers? Everybody's afraid to talk to strangers. And so when you talk to them, you kind of take the barrier away. And then they're, oh, he's friendly, he'll talk to me. And then they talk. Some people are still scared to death and they won't talk to you. And so they're going to live their life afraid, which is no way to live. But so once you figure that out, and then people are very cool. People will teach you a lot of things. People will help you. There's all this world that opens up to you, but you got to talk to them. If you don't talk to them, people feel like you're not interested. You don't want them. You don't need them. So they won't talk to you. You talk to them, your life will change. And talk to them. You're on an elevator, talk to them. It's up to them whether they respond. But if you make it a practice of talking to people, what you're going to find out is you can't wake up in the morning and go back to bed that night without learning something. And what you learn is going to change your life because you talk to them.
I'm sitting here, man, just in complete. I got to stop talking to you, man. I can't handle this anymore. It's just every time you open your mouth, I'm just in awe. I'm just like it's like the Big Bang after Big Bang after Big Bang in my brain of just recreation. God bless, man. I love you to death. Thank you so much for saying that. Because as somebody like myself in a position where, I've been in sales my whole life, I do pretty well in it, but I still have those anxieties. And what you just said, I've seen that 30 for 30 100 times. It's probably one of my favorite ones. And the Boz, he's known as this tough, hard ass, the bad guy. Joe Jackson's pretty much Luke Skywalker, and the Boz is Darth Vader, essentially, right? Like good versus evil, light versus dark. The whole deal there. And just saying, I never heard that in the tunnel he was scared, and that's a huge perspective because that guy goes out there and rips heads off and throws them across the field, right?
Right.
But he's human and he's scared like us.
Right.
And you personally, like, dude, you're such a solid and dominant speaker when you get up there. I've watched your videos 1,000 times. I know what you do. I know what you're capable of, man. You're a machine. You're a monster out there. You're a force to be reckoned with out there. And for you to tell me, Nate, I'm scared. I'm just as scared as the guy in the back row who has a hard time, using the copy machine. Like, I'm the same fucking guy. Like,
right.
Man, to hear that not only humanizes the situation, but I'm just thinking about it like my little brother, he's a stud. He plays for 2 select baseball teams. Dude's a stud. 15 years old, plays for a 60U, and he starts pitching for them. Like, he's a beast, man. And I'm thinking, he gets nervous before the games. Of course he does, right? He's a young kid. Of course, he's nervous. He doesn't want to mess up. He doesn't want to look stupid. Doesn't want to cost the game because being a pitcher is a vital role in the game. Other than a couple other positions, I would say the pitcher pretty much dominates the flow of the game. What happens, right? It all starts with him. So he sets the tone for the whole inning, essentially, right? And I'm thinking, my brother who's scared and in the dugout, before he goes out there, he's probably feeling the same fear as the pros feel, as Yachty felt, as Albert Pujols felt, as Derek Jeter felt, as Sammy Sosa felt, as Mark McGwire. It was all the same anxiety. But the difference is what? My brother goes out there and dominates on the mound. The hero and the coward feels the same. That quote is going to burn in my brain forever now because it's true. All the guys out there that are feeling scared, and it takes one of those guys to be the hero to step up to, take that feeling that everybody in the room's feeling and just kick its ass and just dominate it. I mean, and I think, part of this podcast, man, what I want to do is talk about how, and people use the word the Matrix, right? And then, Alvin and you use this word the Matrix too. And I think it's now a little overplayed since Andrew Tate kind of brought it up, but it's relevant though, right? People commonly nowadays are taught in the Matrix to yield, right? To yield to that fear. And it's okay that, it's okay that you have this fear. It's okay. You don't have to do anything about it. Everybody feels fear. It's okay. And they make people mentally weak. And they make people physically weak. And now that fear dominates them instead of them stepping up to the plate and dominating the fear. So I think what you said is so true, man. It takes somebody to be that hero. Everybody's feeling it, right? But like, for example, firefighters. I have a couple buddies of mine that are firefighters, in different areas across the United States. And yeah, man, you go up to a burning building, 11-story building, it's on fire. Every one of those firefighters are scared, man. Everybody's scared. I guarantee it. The guy's the 20-year veteran, he's scared. The chief is a veteran. The people that live there are veterans. Everybody in the surrounding area is scared. But it takes that one hero to get that axe, break down that door, go up there and save those kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
God bless, man. You've just sparked something to me. And I think foundationally, we got to fix it, man. We got to fix the fear. We got to fix the fear and be ready and anticipate it and expect it and want it and seek it and dominate it and kick its ass, where we can't just get in a bad situation where fear comes in and die,
Yeah. And here's the thing about fear, and I've got a different spin on that than most people have heard. Fear is talked about as an enemy, as evil. I've heard people say all these different things. And so if you think about it, you had a next door neighbor and you treated them like an enemy and they were evil. How's that relationship going to be? Right. But I believe fear is our friend. Right. And so here's the acronym. It's a friend explaining, approaching risks. That's it. And so it's just saying, hey, Nate, that building's on fire, bro. We shouldn't be going in there. And you say, hey, man, I got the training. I got the equipment. I got the axe, and we're going to save lives. And fear is going to say, let's go. All right. Let's go. It's not going to, let's go. And so when you befriend fear, it becomes an ally. Okay. And Abraham Lincoln, this is my second favorite quote of all time. After the Civil War, he's given a speech in the North. And he says that, telling the audience that we need to embrace our brothers and sisters from the South. And a woman raised her hand and questioned him. She says, are you asking us to embrace our enemies? And he said, "Madam, if I turn my enemy into my friend, is my enemy not destroyed? Not defeated, destroyed. So if we turn fear into our friend, is our enemy not destroyed?" Now, not only it's an ally, it's got our back. Okay. So because we've got to talk back to our fear, we got a bigger purpose. So we're coming up on 9/11. And I get emotional every year around this time, and I watch documentaries. And last year, because so many documentaries, you haven't seen them all. You'll never see them all in your lifetime. There's so many stories spun out of that. But it was one of the first police officers that responded to the scene. And she was there, and there were just different different professional law enforcement personnel at this rally point. And she said the gentleman was organized and said, "Hey, if you stay, there's a good chance that you'll never go home again. And so if you want to leave now, I understand. It's that dangerous." She said, "No one left." You think they were afraid? Yeah. But they're like, "We got to save lives. We're doing that." She's the only one that survived from that little group. So fear is not here to harm us. It's here to help us. And if we rally fear, it'll give us so much power and energy to do good, right? So, yeah, man, that was a life changer for me. So I know fear is my friend. It's just telling me things. I need to listen so that I can be careful while I'm doing what I need to do. And it keeps us from being stupid, right?
Yeah, it's like a natural human instinct of checks and balances, right?
Right. People that have no fear, there's hardly any in the population because they've been self-selected as Darwinian. They've all died because of this stupid stuff.
Yeah, natural selection's weeded them out,
Create, so they're gone.
I mean, if I see a copperhead and I'm just like, I'm just gonna pick it up.
Right.
Hey,
right.
Fuck it, I'm just gonna pick it up, right? No, you get bit and you die. I mean, hey, it is what. But that fear though is like, hey, listen, man, there's a snake here. Good chance you go by, you might get bit. Probably let's back it up a couple feet, right? Like,
yeah.
But man, I've never, like you said, you can't ever hear them all. But I was, God bless, 96, so I was 5-ish, turning 6-ish when 9/11 happened. My generation is the generation where we were the babies, pretty much, right? We're like, we remember it, but like, we didn't feel it. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't feel the sadness. We knew what was going on. Like, oh my God, that sucks, right? But like, unless unless somebody lived in the area or had a loved one that was directly impacted by it, like living in Missouri in St. Louis in 2001 didn't mean a damn thing to me when I was 5 years old, right? It wasn't until later in life that I've realized, oh my God, like this is a big deal. This is the largest terrorist attack on our soil in history, right? For us, like, over 3,000 people died, right? And it crushed the economy and just everything, man. And I watching some of these documentaries, I've never seen that one. So to hear that, I almost brings a tear to my eye, man. It's terrible. But I guarantee you, though, those people that made that ultimate sacrifice, basically with fear being the driving factor there, right? I guarantee you when I die and I go up to heaven and, obviously hope to see everybody else there too. But, I bet you if we talk to one of those people, they wouldn't change anything.
Nope.
I bet they are very happy that their reward was everlasting life because of their ultimate sacrifice. And who knows, man, they could have saved, I don't know how many people, were in the towers completely, but I know for a fact, man, if those guys saved one person, it was worth it for them. I'm going to sit here and assume that they saved more. I'm going to sit here and say it was probably 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100. I know the firefighters that died, they went up hundreds of flights of stairs to get to the top to save a couple hundred employees on the top floor, and they died, but they saved hundreds, and it's worth the opportunity cost there. And fear, I guarantee you every step, they were scared. Every step that fear was there, kicking them in the ass like, hey, man, just so you know, the higher we go, the shittier this is going to get. It's not like we're climbing the mountain. At the mountain, you can take a break. When they're climbing this mountain, man, like it's just getting hotter. It's just getting dangerous. And, but God bless these people of New York, and God bless all the surrounding people that are still being affected by the cancer that came from the dust. And God bless all the people that have had family members that were a part of it, that either they passed away or they didn't. But man, I have a lot of respect for those New Yorkers and other people in the surrounding areas as too. But God bless, man. Like, that's such a what an awesome example. Not awesome as like great time, but like what an awesome and powerful example you just gave of how fear is impacted there. And I'm just sitting here thinking, fear and love, hand in hand, both 4-letter words. Both, one is taught more commonly in the household than the other. And it's not right. And it's not all right. Whereas, like you said earlier, where we're always conditioned to be fear of these things. Oh, don't go outside after dark because it's scary. Oh, don't ride your bike down this steep hill because it's scary. Oh, you can get hurt, right? And you create this fear. Why are family members, man, and you might have an answer for this because you're a genius in this category, but I'm not, but why are family people and family members and people in the common world, why are they more predisposed to teach 100 lessons about fear and 1 lesson about love?
Yeah, our brain is naturally wired to be a self-protection, self-preservation mechanism. And in our modern society, it goes from not just protecting life and limb, but our comfort. We want to stay comfort. We don't get out of our comfort zone. Comfort. So that's wired into people. And then sometimes unconsciously they're teaching fear. They're speaking fear into their children. And it's just amazing. Like, you think about the Wright brothers could come back right now. What would they think? You know what I mean? And they were told who was encouraging the Wright brothers? They thought it was a sin. People were telling them it was a sin to even think that man could fly, and they're going to burn in hell because they're trying to fly and it's unnatural. And at that time, scientists believed too that if you went faster than 30 miles an hour, that the human body would explode. I mean, there's all these things, and they were teaching them like it was facts. And it's just it takes courage, right? And that's the thing is, courage isn't the absence of fear; it's the overcoming of it, right? Or in my case, the befriending of fear. Maya Angelou said it was the most important of all the virtues, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently. So you can practice them inconsistently, but without courage, you cannot practice anything consistently. We're going to need courage. And a great thing about courage is like a muscle. And over time, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So even though I have those nerves before a speaking event or things like that, my courage is so strong that it just overpowers those nerves. But it's just a natural wiring. So people are naturally inclined to teach that, when the reality is they're teaching the struggle. We're teaching the struggle instead of, teaching the solution, right? And people that struggle teach other people how to struggle. I mean, that's just the reality of it. But people that dominate teach other people how to dominate.
I think you're right. And I think it's truly that law of attractness, right? Or attraction. I can't speak today. Law of attraction, right? Whereas poor people show people how to be poor.
They do.
And rich people typically show people how to be rich. If you get a group of 5 rich men in a room, I guarantee you they're making money by the end of that call, by the end of that meeting. Like something happened, an idea sparked, or they're working on a new business venture, but you get five poor people in a room, man, like they probably just got poor, mentally, spiritually, physically, whatever it is, financially. It's a revolving door, man. And one of those categories, and it's like people that have that toxic, I mean, you've seen this, man. You're a public speaker. You know this, man. And you teach against this pretty much, right? So like, you're the good guy in the situation, but like, dude, you have an office place. Let's say I remember back in the day before COVID, when I was in a different industry, we had an office, and I worked for a company that I loved it, man. It was a great company. My team was like this family, we were, and I hate to say that we were like a family culture, but we really were, man. Like we took care of each other and we cared about each other. And that's the relationship and the foundation that my boss fostered in that, right? It was love, respect, and caring. That's all this team is. We don't give a shit what happens, but you will love and you will respect and you will care about each other, because that's how we win. We were number 1 in the company in sales for 3 years. We kicked ass, right? But we'd be in the office one day and somebody from a different sales team, and like we would kick people off of our sales team if they brought this negative culture to us, man, because we didn't want that to ruin us, you know. We'd be in the office in the back corner, you know, all 12 of us having fun, kicking ass, making sales, killing it. All of us did well. And then you get somebody on the other side of the office come through, doom and gloom, pissy attitude, bitching about, oh, I was stuck in traffic. Oh, it's raining today. All these people suck. All this client doesn't want to buy, whatever. And they would just, I mean, you could almost feel, it's like somebody turned down the lights and brought a rain cloud in, man. And it just like would suck the energy out of the room, you know? It would just kill everybody's vibe. It would kill everybody's good motion, man. It's crazy how powerful you can have 100 happy people, but if 5 miserable people walk in, I guarantee you some of those people are going to leave unhappy as well, just because that feeling of vibration, right? That sense of feel that is progressing, that is shot out into the universe, man. I truly believe everything's connected through vibration. I'm sure you agree with that, right?
Yeah.
People don't say the word vibe for nothing. Vibe's not a hip thing like, oh, man, I'm feeling his vibe. No, man, it's the actual vibration of what you're emitting from your body, from your being. It's a real thing. Like everything in this world vibrates, right? If you set something down on your table, it's not really touching. Did you know that? There's a little space in between, microscopic space of vibration. Nothing's ever really touching anything. So it's always the vibe, man. And I think I'm going to shut up here because I'm rambling about something in my mind. It makes sense, but it's hard to verbalize, right? But like, dude, you're so right oh my God, I gotta let you take it away, man. My thoughts are going, my brain is just so geared up and I'm so amped up, and I just gotta let you got to run with it, brother.
Yeah, it's true, man. The human emotions are infectious. You know, it's kind of why you're at a sporting event, the whole stadium erupts, right? Just that emotion so infectious. Whereas, you know, if you're on the opposing team, we're playing away, and we do something to take their soul away, the whole stadium goes, right? You know, that silence. And we were like, yeah, we got him. You know, there's only 11 of us on the field. We can hear each other yelling, and 80,000 people are just going, right? They start heading to the exit. We better get home. We lost this game. You know what I mean? So human emotion is so infectious. So you're right. You have to, and the older I get, the more important I see who's around you is ideas, like you said. You're around the right people, you're going to get the right ideas. You're around the wrong people, you're going to get the wrong ideas. And it just goes and goes and goes and goes. And so it's a powerful thing, and I think people take it for granted. And oh well, you know, that's my brother, that's my sister. Hey, you don't have to. You know, I'm not saying you would abandon them. You want to make sure they have food and water and shelter. But beyond that, if they're not positive people, you need to limit your exposure, because it is going to bring you down to their level. You're not going to pull them up. You're not. So that's just the reality of it.
Yeah. Do you remember a couple months ago, and like my buddy I had on the podcast last weekend, we talked about this, about just like growing, right? And you said it best. Like, I think a lot of people feel like they're naturally inclined, like, oh, it's my family member, so I have to put up with this. And what you just said is so true, man. Like, no, you don't. Like, of course, you want them to be healthy, you want them to be happy, you want them to be safe, and you know, want them to have a roof over their head. I'm not saying if your family member loses their house, you don't let them in your house until they figure their shit out. I'm not saying that. But if somebody's bringing you down, man, don't let them bring you down. You got to cut that fat. You got to move on. And I remember a couple months ago, to give context to everybody, I was having a rough time a couple months ago. I was at I wouldn't say rough time, like I was like suicidal or anything like that, but I was at a point in my life where I was ready to grow, and I was having growing pains, right? You remember this conversation. I called you at like 9:00 at night. I was like, hey man, listen, I was like, I need you right now. I was like, I just need you to give me the Dr. Charlie wisdom that I need right now. I need the perspective. I need the insight. And what did I talk about? I said, hey, man, listen, I got some friends of mine that, you know, used to be brothers to me. Love them to death. I still love them. But we've grown in separate directions where I'm ready to take that next step in my life on my personal development. I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to have these more conversations about finance, about healthiness, about, you know, physical being, about being happy, right? About investing, all these things. And my buddies that I'm talking about, they weren't ready for that. And I felt sadness about it. I was like, dude, I can't leave these people behind. Like I've been close to them for 10 years. You know, these guys that I would kill for, right? And they'd kill for me. But I felt a lot of sadness about it. And it really beat me up for a couple of days. I was like, fuck, man. Like, am I an asshole here? Like, what's the problem? And then, you know, when I talked to you, you know, you pretty much showed me that broadcast message of like, dude, listen, like, you're going to lose people along the way on your journey, man. As you grow, as you level up, man. And what did you say? You said, I can't remember the exact quote, but I can only remember the first part. You was like, you can't take everybody with you. Do you remember what you said? Can you please share that actual quote? But the end of it was, you can't take everybody with you, and that's okay. What exactly was it?
Yeah, we're just talking about giving this mountaineering analogy of climbing a mountain. And the reality is everybody can't make that climb. They can't, for physical reasons, for emotional reasons, for personal reasons, for financial reasons. They can't make that climb. And the reality is when we're climbing Mount Everest, I mean, that's a life and death situation. Well, life's not life and death. Yes, it is, right? We all have a limited time here. We don't know how much time we have, and so we've got to maximize our impact during the time we have. And in order to do that, we're not carrying a big screen TV to the top of the mountain, right? We're not bringing the Xbox to the top of the mountain, right? We got to have people around us that are going to fortify that climb, and together we're going to conquer that mountain. Sir Edmund Hillary, right? And this is my favorite quote of all time. You know, he's credited with the first person to summit, Mount Everest and then make it down safely. He didn't climb by himself. He had a Sherpa, him and Tenzing Norgay. So two people did that. But what he said was the impossible. He failed the first two times and then the third time made it. He said the impossible can always be broken down into possibilities, right? And then if you accomplish those possibilities, you will have achieved at what one time people believe was impossible. So it is impossible to take the wrong people to the top of that mountain. All of you are going to die on the side of that mountain. You have the right people, you can make the right climb the right way and make it back safely. So we got to recognize that and act upon that. This can't take everybody, and that's one of the big downfalls. Athletes. Why are all these people say, why do these athletes all go broke after? Because they're trying to take everybody with them. You can't, right? And so it's just the reality of it. And we've got to get comfortable with that. That's okay. And we help where we can, but we've got to make sure that we maintain our financial health. We can't help anybody if we don't do that. We got to maintain our physical health. We can't help anybody if we don't do that. We got to maintain our emotional health. We can't help anybody if we don't do that, right? And our spiritual health.
And physical. I mean, if you're hanging off the side of a cliff and I've never worked out a day in my life, I'm not going to be able to pull you up.
Right. And so we got to just recognize that, and then it's for the greater good, right? And some people are going to fall away for their reasons, and they have their reasons, but we need to climb with the people that are looking to climb and looking to assist in not only our climb but theirs. Now we're assisting together, and we go up that mountain. There's no mountain that hasn't been conquered from that approach. So
very true. So there's two things. I know we're getting close on time here. So there's two things that I want to touch base with you real quick. Is one, you just said something that I think is going to be, if not one of the most valuable aspects of this whole conversation, is finding that team, if you will, right? We talked about, cutting the fat of people that aren't ready to take that climb with you. What do you think are some things that people can do to find that team of people that are ready to climb that mountain with them? Because, I think that I found a couple of good people. I mean, you're one of those people in my category. I seek you out for counseling all the time. For anytime I always have something, I always talk to you about business. I always talk to you about my life. I always talk to you about this and that, and you're able to give me that positive and correct, ideas, and your responses. I would say I trusted them very much so, and I go with them majority of the time. I'd say 90% of the time you tell me to do something, I'm like, he's probably right, and the reason why is that you've already conquered that hill before. You've already climbed that mountain. I'm going to come to you and say, hey man, I think I found another trail to climb this mountain. You're like, hey, listen, I've already climbed it twice. Just take this route. Don't make a left here, right. Make it right here. I've already done it. I've already got the bumps and bruises, right? Just follow my path I've already blazed. Right. So if you could share with me, because I think you have a great core of people you work with too, right? If you could share with me, what are some things that people, let's say my age, maybe a little younger, or even a little older, who cares, right? What are some qualities and traits of people that they can seek out, or, how could they even go and finding these individuals that are maybe in the same position, or maybe just a little ahead, maybe just a little behind, but are in the same ballpark of having that A+ team? Where can we find those people?
Yeah, it's a great question, Nate. And here's the reality is, and I do use this your dinner table, right? You only have so many seats available at your table. That's your inner circle, okay? And so people say, "Oh, I got 1,000 friends on Facebook or 2,000." They're not your friends, okay? That's just the reality. Facebook friends are really not your friend, okay? So you got to know that. And if you want to test it, then Zig Ziglar provided this great test. If you think someone's your friend, ask them for some money, and then get back to me, right? And your friends, they're not going to give you any money, okay? So your inner circle is so important, that table. And and I told my oldest daughter this several times throughout the years, and then when she applied it, she's successful. Like, if you don't have the right people, because you don't have limited seating, right? So if you don't have the right people around your table, the right people can't come in and sit down because they don't have a space. You got to free up that chair so the right person can sit down, right? Well, how do you select that group? Well, one thing is when someone, and Maya Angelou said this before she passed away, and it was her advice to young people, but it applies to everyone. She says, once someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Not the second time, not the third time. When they show you who they are, believe them the first time. Now, vibration, we've talked about mindset, that when you go to different vibration levels, the music changes. It's like a radio station. The music changes, literally. You're hearing and seeing things that other people don't hear and see. So think about the analogy of a concert. All right. That's your favorite artist, and you show up and there's all these people. That's their favorite artist too. So who's listening to the same music, from an intellectual standpoint as you, from a principle standpoint as you, right? From a value standpoint, look for people that have shared values, and that's going to be the group you come from. Back to that table analogy. If you weren't there for the famine, I don't want you sitting at my table for the feast. Who was at your table during the famine? Those are your friends. Everybody's around when Nathan's cooking 200 pounds of meat, and beer chests are full and alcohol's flowing, food's flowing. Hey, swimming in the pool. During the famine, who showed up to help? Who brought you a plate of food? Those are your friends.
I love that, man. I love that. And I've as stupid as it sounds, in 7th grade, we had these like vocab words we would use. And one of the vocab words that stuck with me forever, right? If there's anything I ever learned from 7th grade language arts class, is this word: fair weathered friend. That was fair weathered was the vocab word. Right. And that for some reason has always stuck with me. And I've been able to identify those people fair often, right? And like you said, believe them the first time. I think that's so huge, man, because everybody wants to come party and drink when the wind's flowing, right? Everybody wants to come party and eat when the food is there, man. But like you said, dude, like, who's the one that, hey, Nate's having a hard time, let me go bring him a plate. Let me go check in on him, right? Let me go talk to him. Let me, whatever it is, right? Not saying that
help you move, right?
Oh God! Oh my God! That is the ultimate fucking test. That is the ultimate test. If they are your real friend, they will help you move. I'll tell you what. I knew a guy. I've helped him move 7 times. 7 times. Okay? No complaints. And I refuse to take money from my friends, right? I refuse. If you want to do something cool, man, order pizza. I'm cool with that, right? I refuse to take money from my friends in any situation. But I helped this guy move 7 fucking times. And this is not like, hey, man, we're moving down the street and, it's a single, no. This is like, hey, man, I'm moving from my apartment in the 7th floor. Oh, elevator's down. And we got to move to my new apartment on the 8th floor. Oh, elevator's down, right? So, like, that's the kind of moves that we were doing, right? And it was not like, hey, I just need you to help me carry a couch. It was like, I need you to move a California King bed. I need you to move an 80-inch TV. I need you to move a refrigerator, all this shit, a washer, dryer, all this shit, right? Man, when I bought my house 2 years ago, going on 3 years, God bless, I asked this guy to help me move. He didn't show up. Gave me every excuse under the sun of why he couldn't help me move. But I have another friend who I've helped move 5 times. And she's a girl. One of the toughest girls I've ever met in my life. Love her to death as like a sister. She's great. And she weighs probably 80 pounds wet. I asked her to help me move. Said, hey, I'm moving. I've helped you move. Return the favor. She's like, absolutely. Gotcha. No problem. When do you want to be there? I said, we're going to start at 6 a.m. She was there at 5:45. right? She was there at 5:45. I'm carrying this California King bed. Guess who's on the other side helping me carry it? This little girl that's 80 pounds. And she didn't complain one time. Never complained one time. So, it was in that moment I realized, who is probably going to be eating at my table for a long time and who
Right.
probably needs to go sit at the kids' table, So,
Right.
man, that's such a good test. Help ask a buddy to help you move.
Yeah.
God damn, that's a universal test of
True,
they always
right?
say when you're at a grocery store, and if we ever go to the grocery store, you'll notice me, but doing this. But if I see carts out, I will go and corral the carts and put them back. It drives me nuts to see them like that, and that's a universal test. A universal test if somebody's a good person.
Man. I did that at Costco, and I corralled these 3 carts. I put them in the thing. I turned around. The guy's like, "You're hired. Be here 8 tomorrow morning." I was like, "I'm sorry, dude. Oh, thank you so much, sir. I just can't stand it." You know what I mean? So I grab it and when I put my cart back, I take them, man.
Yeah, it's a universal test, man. It's if you want to see who's a good person, who's a bad person, fundamentally, it's the people who put their cart back. And then you get people like us that, I know it's the right thing to do. So if I see one next to it, I'll corral it. And if I see one next to it, I'm not saying I'm walking to the other side of the street and getting in. I'm not Jesus Christ by all means. But if I see one close by, I'll grab it for sure, right? That's just another one of these universal tests, man. If you want to know who your friends are, move and ask them to help. Because that's one of the most mundane and shittiest task you could do.
True, man.
Because you're moving somebody else's stuff.
Hey, and the weather always sucks the day you move, doesn't it?
Oh.
It's hot, it's cold,
It's rains.
Something happens.
Always.
It's just universal. The weather's gonna be shitty that day.
I remember the first time I moved out, my buddy, he's passed away now, God rest his soul though, but a good friend of mine. I asked him to help me move. He's like, he had a truck. He had his parents were pretty well off, so they bought him this really nice Ford F-150, just a $70,000 truck, right, for his first car, right? And this truck was a beast. We loved it. We probably put 2,000 miles a month on that damn thing, man, just riding around and being young kids. I remember first time I moved, I was 19, got my own apartment somewhere, paying $300 for rent, dirt cheap in some shithole area. I asked him to help me move, and he's like, "Yeah, brother, I'll be there, no problem, whatever." Dude shows up at my house. We load my mattress. We're driving to the new spot. What happens? Nate's a young kid, inexperienced, never moved before, didn't think to look at the weather. Dude, I got this queen mattress that I've used forever, right? And, before I upgraded to the California King, but had this queen mattress. That's the only thing I owned in my name as far as bed. I mean, I was 19 and made probably $20,000 a year. Didn't have a penny to my name. And downpour. Starts raining. Man, that mattress was wet. I'm not kidding you, brother. For 3 days, that mattress was wet. I slept on the floor. I had fans going. I had the AC on, the whole 9 yards, man. And my buddy the whole time he was like, "Hey, man, if you need to stay at my house," they had a couple $1 million house, so they had plenty of room. But even if he had a 1,000 square foot apartment, he would offer this. He was like, "Hey, man, I know your mattress is wet, and I know this is really shitty." He's like, "If you need to sleep over a couple nights, man, just stay over. Just stay over." And it's those kind of relationships that I want to foster. And I have some people at my table now that I think if I called them at 3 a.m., I actually did a test. This is going to be funny. I did a test the other day. It was like, call your buddy at 2 a.m. and say, "Hey, man, listen, I can't go into detail, but I need to pick you up, and some people are going to get hurt," and what their response is.
Right.
So I called my best man, who's been my best friend for fucking 14 years, right? I called my best man just as this test, just playing around with him. Called him 11 o'clock at night. He's got 2 kids. One's a baby, an infant, and the other one's 7 years old. He's just hanging out. I said, "Hey, buddy," I said, "listen, I can't go into detail, but I need to come pick you up, and some people are going to get hurt." And he goes, "All right, come get me."
Yeah, what time are you showing up?
Yeah, he's like, "Hold on, man." He's like, "Hold on." He's like, "I'm down, but you got to tell me what's going on." I was like, and I was like, "All right, man, it was just a test and you passed, man. I love you, brother. Bye." It's just, Oh man, I hope everybody that listens to this podcast, man, I hope that you can find those people that will commit violence with you at 3 a.m. if needed. No, I'm just kidding. But whoever listens to this podcast, man, I hope that you find those people that are worthy to sit at your dinner table and you're worthy to sit at theirs. And, everybody eats. And I've used this quote many times, Charlie, many times. I said, "Listen, I want that person to eat. I just don't want them at my table. I don't want them to starve, but hey, my table, we're full, we're reserved, right? I love the analogy and everything you brought in. The second part of what I wanted to jump into is I wanted to go a little more into detail real quick. I mean, we don't have to break down every part of the formula, but could you show the formula again and just really read it out to us, right? We all know the a squared plus b squared equals c squared bullshit that we learned that we never use, but this formula I feel like we actually will use. So will you read it to us and explain the dynamic of it?
Yeah, so it starts with care to the power of warmth, right? Then you've got love, you got respect, you got gratitude to the power of authenticity, you got empowerment. Oh man, I'm looking here, and yeah, empowerment to the power of direction. You got value, progress, and meaningful work, setting expectations, hope, ownership, trust, right? And then trust to the power of belief, right? And so you got that formula, and you notice that everything is bracketed with trust on the outside, right? If we ever break trust, because everything outside the bracket is multiplied by what's inside, right? So if you ever break trust with someone, you can love them, respect them, all that stuff, but it doesn't matter because you've lost trust. So everything that we do, every action, every word, every thought has to be somehow building trust in our relationship. If it's not going to build trust, you shouldn't do it or say it, right? And so these principles are backed by science, and that's how you can create an impact either on a personal level or on a professional level. And if you look at respect, right, that's a big one. And there's a research study, the Mercer Group. They went to 22 nations, all 4 hemispheres, and in each nation put together a top 12 list on what's most important to people at work. And, money was always on the list, but I was shocked that money would never finish higher than number 8. But the big surprise was number 1 was universal. Right, every language, every nation, right? So Africa, China, Japan, Australia, UK, Canada, United States, Mexico. And it was respect, right? And so respect is a huge one, and respect takes walls down and does so many things. The last piece I'll talk about is just hope, and why is hope so important? Well, Gallup conducted this research study on hope. And it was interesting how they asked the question. They asked it this way: does your manager, does your supervisor make you feel optimistic about the future, right? Because that's hope by definition. And 67% of engaged employees said yes. So we know it's a factor in employee engagement. Here's the kicker: 99% of the disengaged employees said no, right? So people need to feel hopeful about the future. Our words and actions need to elicit hope, right? And that's in our personal relationships as well. So, that formula, that's basically my life's work, right? And, every speech that I give, every workshop that I teach, underneath all of it are the foundational principles that are on that page. And it's a life changer for me and others. And I know that formula will outlive me, which would be awesome, right? That there's versions of it that'll be out there changing lives in a positive way and making the world a better place.
I think you're right, man. And I think, all of us humans, I think fundamentally, we all seek to have something that lasts forever, that outlasts us, right? Remember this, we had this conversation, and this is the last thing I'll say too, and we'll get back to our busy Sundays. But I remember I told you, I read that quote, and I think you said you've heard it before, but, we die twice. Remember when we talked about that? And when I learned it probably last year, and it stuck with me, I think about it all the time. We die twice, right? You have a physical death where you die, and that's it, right? And then you have a second death, the last time somebody's ever spoken or thought about you, right? And you got guys like Julius Caesar, right, who died 2,000 years ago. But he's only died once. He's died physically. but he's still around forever. You got people like Jesus Christ, right? Died thousands of years ago, 2,000 years ago, but 2,030 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll probably will live on forever in that life, right? Which I'm thankful for. But so what you said just now I want to leave people with this, right? You create a formula that will definitely outlive you, that I personally believe will be around forever, that people will use as a blueprint for success in the workplace. I think all of us need to strive to leave our mark on this world and to leave our mark on humanity, whatever it is, hopefully for the positive. I mean, hoping you're not, like doing anything bad where you're like, oh, I poisoned the water supply so nobody can drink here, right? Like, hopefully it's nothing like that. But, all of us, in my opinion, should be striving to leave our everlasting mark on humanity for the better. Whereas you never die that second time, wherever it is, right? It could be on a small scale, a large scale, doesn't matter. But, do your best to leave your mark in a positive setting to where it helps somebody else long after you're gone. If you go back to the original part of our conversation, go out there and plant an apple seed. I promise you, somebody will eat an apple off that tree at some point. It doesn't matter if it's 100 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 50 million years from now. As long as that tree is there, somebody will pick an apple from it and eat it. And it's because of the efforts you did however long ago. So I'll leave everybody with that. Dr. Charlie, please, real quick, before I send us off here, could you please tell us a little bit more about how we can find you, what you do, the name of your company, how you'd like people to follow you, check you out, watch more of your stuff?
Yeah, if you Google Dr. Charlie Cartwright, it'll be a ton of things and resources. You can go there. So all you have to do is Google Dr. Charlie Cartwright. That's CARTWRIGHT, and you'll see my picture. There's videos and clips and websites and all that. And I'm on LinkedIn, so I post videos there. I've got a lot of content there on LinkedIn that you can process and kind of look through my background at your leisure. But definitely love to hear from anyone and with questions, comments, and love all of it. So appreciate the opportunity to be here today, Nate.
Hey, Brett. Obviously, when I started this up, you were one of my first people in my mind. I was like, I got to get him on here. I was like, because you've blessed me with so much knowledge and wisdom, man. I just need to allow you to hit other people with that too. And so talking about planting that seed, right? You planted a seed with me, and now I'm trying to give you an orchard. So, brother, I love you to death, man. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been such a blessing. Obviously, I know we'll talk a little bit later too, but man, I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Love you too, brother. Thank you.
All right, brother. See ya.
See ya. Bye-bye.